Well, the big mayoral debate was last night. Philadelphia's Democratic candidates, they got to face off on stage for the first time.
And speak on a number of issues from money to quality of life, gun violence, schools as well. I want to bring in Bruce Gordon to talk more about this. When I was there last night Okay, first of all, let's listen to what Alan Gim had to say about not being bought.
When you're up against someone like Alan Dom that has unlimited money, you have to find a way to raise money to compete.
Like most people, Jeff Brown does not believe the rules apply to him. And we made it very clear that all PACs and super PACs do reveal their donors.
Mr. Dom, he mentioned your name. You've put $7 million of your own campaign, of your own money into this campaign. Sir, you're wealthy. Are you trying to buy this election, sir?
Not at all. Let me just say this. I grew up very modestly. 5 years old, I was shining shoes.
But you're not now, sir.
No, I'm not now. But I know the value of a dollar. I know the value of a dollar, and I've invested in my campaign because I love the city and I want to see the best for the city, and I'm not beholden to anyone. No one controls me. I'm totally independent. I will do what's best for this city, not just today, but in 5, 10, 15, and 20 years. That's my goal.
So once again, one of the issues there, super PACs, money and politics, and who can be bought. Now let's bring in Bruce Gordon. Good to see you. I was there last night. As I mentioned, Jeff Cole, you saw him, and Sheba Russell. Overall, I think everyone did well. I don't think there was a clear loser of the debate, but did you see anyone as a front runner?
I actually thought Sherelle Parker was particularly strong. Again, as you said, I would agree. I didn't think anyone had a terrible night. Certainly, Jeff Brown took more incoming verbal fire than anyone else. That certainly suggests that the other candidates believe he is either the front runner or certainly among the front runners. You don't waste your time and energy going after someone who you don't think is a real likely winner. But I thought Sherelle Parker had some strong answers, was smooth and polished in her delivery, and I thought did a pretty good job articulating her message among all the candidates.
And you mentioned Jeff Brown, and you're right. There were some punches that were thrown toward his way. So here are just a couple of moments where folks were making comments about Jeff Brown and his campaign.
Well, Jeff, there you go again. Selling a lot of Fruit Loops do not make you qualified to be mayor.
The Sixers arena has nothing to do with that. And also, it is kind of trash that they tried to buy one of the candidates on this stage, proving yet again that the rules don't apply for billionaires and that this is not how we're going to run a city. A mayor's going to run a city in the public interest.
And, of course, all reports say that the race is still pretty open. But how do you think Jeff Brown handled that, and how did he do then?
Reasonably well. Look, the issue there is the question. There's been some reporting that suggests that the Philadelphia 76ers may be secretly or quietly funding a super PAC that supports Jeff Brown. Of course, they want a new arena on Market Street. He has already indicated he is supportive of that. So the question is, are those two things connected? I have to say I take some offense. I had Fruit Loops for breakfast, so I'm a little offended by the comment there. Look, no matter what you think of Jeff Brown as a candidate, good or bad, it is a gross oversimplification, obviously, to suggest he's out there just selling cereal. He's obviously a successful business person who does have a different perspective than all of the other candidates who are former elected officials.
He's probably alluding to the fact that he is, I guess, an outsider, as you would say, because he doesn't have any political experience.
And real quick, and I want to move on to crime here, the super PAC, the money, how much of an issue or impact do you think that actually has on the voter, legality aside?
Look, there are a number of ways to look at it. If you've got all kinds of money like Alan Dom and you self-fund, you can legitimately say, I'm not beholden to anyone. You've got to come up with money somewhere to run in these races in a big city with TV advertising and so forth. So if you don't have that kind of personal wealth, you go outside. And maybe you get small donors, but that's tough to do. You've got to get money. And so maybe then you're beholden to big money interests. So you can attack this from any direction, no matter where you get your money.
Major issue impacting the city, gun violence, the overall violence in the city, and that's how we started off the night. Pretty much all of the candidates said they would declare some type of emergency on day one. But also another topic that came up, stop and frisk. Take a listen.
Are you in favor of stop and frisk? Yes or no?
There are a couple of candidates who didn't answer. How did you view this one?
Yeah, actually, I thought this was one of the stronger elements of the evening for Sherelle Parker. She made clear that she supports stop and frisk if it's done correctly. She said, look, and this is somewhat of a controversial program. Obviously, there's some concerns, legitimate concerns, that police sometimes abuse the stop and frisk policy, especially in communities of color. Sherelle Parker takes a somewhat controversial position that, look, I do support it. I think it's a good program for law enforcement if it's done correctly. And under my administration, it would be done correctly. I thought she was pretty strong on that issue and not just the knee-jerk, no, I'm against it because it's been done wrong in the past.
Mm-hmm. Yes, you certainly did show support for that. Also, when it comes to schools, of course, that was another big topic. And Helen Gim was asked a big question because we all know she was a former teacher. And for most of her political career, she's really stood out when it comes to education issues. So here's what she had to say about her plan for Philly schools.
I'm very clear that our education crisis is directly related to the violence that is happening here in the city of Philadelphia. And last week I unveiled a $10 billion plan to actually modernize schools. Obviously, one of the candidates has no clue about how to fund them. Ensure after school and summer camps and programs, year-round schooling. I'll prioritize safe passages to and from schools. And I do believe that labor has a role to play.
So what were your thoughts, Bruce, especially on the answers in general? Because everybody seems like we need to build new schools, we need to do this, but where the money's going to come from and how we're going to do that was a big part of conversation.
Right. Look, and the sad reality is that much of this is out of the city's control. Much of this is a function of what Harrisburg does, how Harrisburg decides to dole out the money to school districts around the Commonwealth. And so there's only so many choices you have for where you come up with the money. Her plan was immediately attacked by, I mentioned Sherelle Parker, and a few others who say, look, $10 billion to do this is wonderful. Right, it's wonderful to say that, but where will you actually come up with the money to do it? That's always the literally billion-dollar question.
And a lot of candidates are asking, where will the money, as you mentioned, come from? The 76ers discussion, boy, this one got heated at times. I know we have a couple of sound bites. We're tight on time, so let's just loop right through them.
As of today, are you a yes or a no on the 76ers arena proposal? And the purpose of these lightning rounds is to see where you stand on these issues. And I know it's complicated, but as of today, if you're mayor, where you stand?
Before I answer that question, I believe the next mayor of the city needs to be completely transparent with each and every individual that we are going to represent. So, Ms. Gim, is it true that you met one-on-one with the Sixers owner on Market Street the other day?
So
Please.
unlike State Representative Brown and unlike the other Brown, I'm not bought. And so it's clear that, we're going to have a clear conversation about the future of this city, but it's going to be in the public interest. I have always been somebody who has led with the public interest.
Did you meet with the Sixers?
I met with David Edelman, but not to discuss anything.
Okay. Whoa.
Wait,
Jeff Brown.
Hold on a second. So to be clear, meeting with an individual is not a problem. Taking their money is.
So I followed up there, Bruce, and I asked her what was the meeting about, and she didn't answer. It was still unclear. What did you make of that exchange?
Yeah, look, I thought Helen Gim overall had a pretty good evening. That was clearly the weak spot for her. That was the low point of the evening for her. Basically, yes, I talked to a Sixers executive, but we didn't talk about anything. Sort of like, I used pot, but I didn't inhale years ago from Bill Clinton. It doesn't compute. Later on, she clarified that, well, we talked about the Sixers situation on Market East briefly. Not a good moment. She needed to be much clearer about that. And let's be clear, she has indicated she's against this project. So it's not as if she's been swayed in any way, at least as far as we can tell. But it was not a good look to say, yes, I talked to him, but we didn't talk about anything. And then later on saying, yes, we briefly discussed the project. This is a controversial project for a million different reasons. And clearly it showed last night.
We're out of time. I know you can do this in 20 seconds. Jeff Brown, there was a rebuke last night on what he had to say about the trash. I mean, you know that very moment. He said the trash has to go somewhere, referencing Chester.
Yeah, look, I don't necessarily think it hurts him. He was inelegant in how he described it, but the reality is the trash has to go somewhere. The better answer for Jeff Brown would have been, look, we have a legitimate contract with a legitimate trash hauling firm. They get rid of that trash where they get rid of it at their facility. And as long as it's being done safely, then I have no problem with it. The trash does have to go somewhere, and he made clear he's a Philly-first guy. I don't necessarily think that hurts him among Philadelphia voters. Doesn't make him any friends in Chester, obviously, but it may not hurt him in Philly.
And, of course, it was brought up by Sherelle Parker. Well, the thing is that's affecting black and brown communities and marginalized communities, and that's the communities he's saying that he protects and is very familiar with and wants to help. And so I think that was also brought up, and the reason why there was such a reaction, because I guess it only matters if it's in, in Philadelphia. But if you guys want to see see that moment and more, of course, we have the full debate up on our website and also on our YouTube, so you can go and watch it in full and make your own opinion about what went down last night.
Bruce Gordon, we
Thank
certainly
you.
appreciate your insights.
Thank you so much. So here
My
are the
pleasure.
key dates to know ahead of the 2023 municipal election. Monday, May 1st is the last day to register to vote in Pennsylvania. And the primary is Tuesday, May 16th. The election day is Tuesday, November 7th. So those are the dates. And of course, we'll keep reminding you, we'll keep talking about it for sure leading up until then.
Once again, check out that debate. It's online.